Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video from Generation Medics. I'm your host Mia, and today's video is a live Q&A with a brand new doctor. Today I'm joined by one of our team, the lovely Catherine, who very recently graduated as a doctor from the University of Liverpool. Congratulations, Dr. Catherine. We're all super proud of you and can't wait to get stuck in with the questions about applying to uni, life at med school, and life as a brand new doctor. Just before we get into it, this video is brought to you by Generation Medics. We're an award-winning organisation founded by NHS doctors to support current and future healthcare professionals to lead awesome careers. You can find out more about us and join our community to get support via our website, generationmedics.org.uk, and we'll leave a link in the description box below too. Before we get started, please do hit the subscribe button and make sure notifications are turned on so you don't miss new videos from us every week. This is one in a series of live Q&As and workshops that we do regularly. If you want to see when the next one is happening, please make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is @GenMedX. That's GENMEDX. Here's a quick reminder of how our live Q&As work. We'll get stuck in with Dr. Catherine sharing her journey to medicine with you before she answers your questions. A big thank you to everyone who sent in questions for Dr. Catherine via our forum and Instagram. We've been flooded with great questions and we're aiming to cover as much as we can, so settle in and get comfy. So Dr. Catherine, let's begin with you telling us a bit about you. When did you know that medicine was right for you?
So I knew medicine was something I was interested in around sort of A-levels, maybe GCSE time. It's something I was starting to think about. A lot of interest in science and things a lot of people do. I think I'm a really people-based person. I like interacting with people, and medicine just kind of made sense. Looked into it a bit more, went to open evenings, things like that, all Googling. Generation Medics would have been an amazing resource for me to know about at the time. But yeah, it was around that time that sort of grew and ended up getting here, which is very happy I did. It's good.
Great, thank you. So let's get straight into the student questions. So Olu asks, studying medicine is a long commitment. It must feel weird to have finished. How do you feel now?
It still feels a bit weird, because obviously 5 years in my life is quite a long time to be a student for, and it's just kind of stopped now. And it's like, okay, what am I doing? Feeling really excited, really, really proud of myself that I managed to get through it all. Also pretty nervous as well to start, as I think a lot of aspiring medics are feeling for like getting into medical school. So it's a similar position really, back at the bottom of the totem pole again. But I'm very excited to see where the future goes.
Yeah, it must be a really exciting time. So the next question is from Sam. How do you feel as a recent graduate about to begin your job as a doctor? I think you sort of covered that just a minute ago, but what are you most excited about and what are you most worried about?
So what I'm really excited about is being able to actually put some of the skills I've been learning into practice. So obviously you learn loads and loads as a medical student, and you never really feel like you're properly responsible for them, even though you might be taking bloods on the wards, but like as the doctor, that's your job, that's your responsibility to look after the patient. So I'm kind of excited to learn more about that, learn on the job, meeting my new colleagues from other medical schools as well. I'm really excited about that because different medical schools can bring different things. So meeting colleagues I'm very excited about. What I'm worried about, I suppose things like the difficult conversations you might be having with colleagues or family members or patients, which you might not be able to predict. You do get some training and teaching in medical school, but you never really do it in real life. So I suppose I'm worried about my first few of those and sort of how they go. But yeah, I'm prepared as I can be, but obviously the natural nerves for them. So that's what I'm most worried about at the
moment. So the next question is from Sam. What did you study at A-level, first of all? And did you sit the UCAT or the BMAT? And can you tell us a bit about your experiences with one of those, maybe?
Sure. So I did maths and further maths A-level because I liked maths a lot at the time. I also did biology and chemistry. So mine was a bit funny because I was doing a further maths one. I got 4 whole A-levels instead of 3, and then 4 ASs, which is what it was like for me at the time. But that's what I did. And then I did the UCAT. I only applied to UCAT entry medical school, so I didn't do the BMAT. So I've got no experience with that, unfortunately. But with the UCAT, I just remember it being a bit of a weird exam. It's just getting used to the timings is the biggest thing that I remember from doing it.
So this question is from Ibrahim in Paris. There are so many medical schools to choose from. How would you advise to choose between them?
Yeah, it's a big question, isn't it? Because it's 30 or so schools to choose from. What I would say to start with is sort of think, what's the most important thing for you as somewhere you'd want to live for the next 5 years? So thinking about how far away it might be from home, that might be something that's important for you. Thinking about the curriculum for that particular medical school, because it is very different everywhere. So if you want something that can get you into clinical practice a bit earlier, you might pick somewhere that does that. Or if you want to, narrow down, get your science right before you feel confident going to clinical, looking at things like that. So the curriculum's a great place to look for that. Other things to consider is the cities themselves. So if you want to live like in the middle of a city, if you want a big city, small city, whether you want somewhere a bit more quiet, might want a campus life. So again, each medical school does different things. So you can comparing curriculums is a good idea, looking how far away it is. So essentially it's what's important for you, because there will be a medical school that will take you and there will be one for you. It's just finding the right one. So hopefully that will help you get there.
Yeah, there are so many things to think about. It's hard to really like boil it down to just a few to give someone advice for. So the next question is from Claire, and Claire asks, what was the most difficult part of the application to uni for you and why?
So the trickiest part for me was the interview process. I think it's probably the most daunting for most people. And for myself, I had very little experience of interviews beforehand. I only had like one job interview before. So I was very, very nervous about that. But all I did basically just got my head down, sort of practice with as many people as I could, so family members, friends. I got one of my teachers in schools to like sit me down, just have a go. So that was definitely the most intense thing I can remember from the application. But as general advice, just practice as much as you can with the interview.
Yeah, that definitely goes for a lot of things, to just keep practicing and hope that you make some progress. So the next question is from Alicia, and Alicia asks, what's your favourite thing about studying at Liverpool?
It's the city. I really, really love the city of Liverpool. It's just so charming. There's loads of good food. It's well linked. It's just a nice size as well. It's nice to walk around. There's just lots going on, like as a student, for you to get involved with. Obviously the uni itself, I really, really love. Like the curriculum suits me really well. But in the end, it was the city that swayed me, because again, sort of as I mentioned before, you're living there for 5 years. You kind of need to at least get along with it. But I just kind of fell in love with it. So that's why I came here.
Great, thank you. So Lily asks, what advice would you give to people applying to medical school? That's obviously quite a weighty question, so maybe your top bit of advice, if you have anything for an aspiring medical student.
So other than the few things we have talked about already, I would say if you can, obviously as opportunity permits, but going to open days I think is really helpful. So obviously it's very dependent on like parents being available, friends, money to get there and everything, but even if you can just like have a look around campus and get a bit of a feel of wherever you might be moving to, I think that can be really helpful in helping you narrow down stuff. Because if you see something on paper, it looks really good, you like between two and they're quite similar, and you visit one and it just doesn't feel quite right, and you visit another and it just really hits home for you, that can really help you decide what's important for you. And then another thing, if you do get to go to those open days, or if you get to speak to medical students or staff or people that live in the city, just like ask questions. Like if you've got, even how stupid it might seem in your head, I promise it's not. Just get as much information as you can about those places from the people that are there, because the students will be honest if you ask them questions. So ask questions and go to open days.
Great, thank you. So the next question is from Hasib, who asks, do you know which specialty you want to go into in the future? If yes, when did you know?
So at the minute, I'm thinking about general practice. I think it suits me very well. I find it very exciting. I think I started thinking about it properly around third year. So at Liverpool, that's the first year we go into clinical practice. So we get to see different specialties a lot as well. So we rotate through things like GP, pediatrics, and women's health and all that kind of stuff. And when I was there, I just really enjoyed it. Like the GP tutor I had was really nice. So that was around the time I started thinking about it. And then through fourth, fifth year, I actually joined the GP Student Society and got to like see more GP based things with them. Really enjoyed my other GP placements in fourth and fifth year as well. So it's just really stuck with me, and I think I quite And I'm considering it, definitely. Try not to narrow down too soon, but it's definitely probably at the forefront at the moment. Yeah.
That's really interesting, thank you. So Lauren asks, is everyone at medical school 18 and fresh from A-levels? I'm a little older, will that matter?
Absolutely not. So the student body is massively diverse, especially in age. So I think one of the people that I know in my cohort is in their 30s, don't know exactly how old, but obviously massively different from someone that coming in. Myself was straight from A-levels at 18, but there's loads of like graduate students, there's people that have taken a few years out, people have done a few other degrees, had different jobs, and then come in. It does not make a difference at all. To be honest, I think being older probably gives you more benefits because you've got all that life experience, which will help you get in the first place with interviews, and also just helps you learn a bit faster. I think people just kind of get on along a lot better with it if they've got maybe prior knowledge from other degree or another job. Like just the life skills you get from that does really help you. So if anything, it's a benefit. Look at it that way. But you will not be like the only one. There's plenty of people of different ages.
Yeah, it's a really good point, thank you. So the next question is from Ben, and Ben asks, what's something that surprised you about medicine that you didn't know before you began at medical school?
I think something that actually surprised me a lot is just how how many different things you can do with medicine. It might sound a bit silly, I suppose, but obviously everyone knows there's loads of different specialties. But like when you kind of get there and you get to be on the wards for that particular area, or you get to speak to someone in that area, you can understand there's actually loads you can do with it. So, for example, if you're really interested in things like research or teaching, or you want it kind of as like your one of your jobs and then maybe do something completely different, so you might go into like medical law, for example, or something like that. There's so many opportunities in medicine to do literally whatever you want with it, and I don't think that's something that I really appreciate before I got in. And I suppose that's a helpful thing to know, because then you can you're not too stuck with I'm just going to be a doctor and I'm just going to be on the ward and that's what I'm going to have to do, because it's not the case. You can literally do anything you want with it. So I thought that was really cool when I got in. I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So the next question is from Raheem, and it's, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself as you were preparing your application to medical school, what would you say?
Well, definitely practice more interview stuff, always good. But I think the main thing I tell myself is just to trust myself. Because you do get very much in your head when you're applying. You think, oh, there's these other people that, they've gone to private schools, they've done these amazing things, they've had so many weeks like shadowing in a doctor's surgery or whatever. And you can literally like make whatever that you've done, even if working McDonald's or something like that, can be really, really helpful and give you loads of skills to get in. And if you want to do it and you're willing to put in the time to like process the application, you can do it. So just trust myself a bit more is definitely something I would do. And I know it's hard, but just trying to like relax into it and just be who you are, essentially. That's something that I would have probably tried to emphasize a bit more. I was very nervous, but I know it's hard to do, but it's a good energy to try and channel.
Yeah, I think that would be really good advice for aspiring medical students. And so the next question is from Shamika, who says, how would you say medicine compares to other subjects in terms of term time and free time? Do you spend longer at uni?
Yeah, so with medicine, it is true you do get a few extra weeks, kind of longer terms than an average degree, I suppose. But I think that's something that's, they need, there's a lot of content to put in, a lot of things to teach you, a lot of time that you need to spend on the wards in order to be able to qualify. So they can't really cut those weeks out, because then it'd just be a big massive squash and things would be a lot worse if you didn't have those extra weeks. So I think it's definitely worth it, and you do have them. It's kind of unavoidable, unfortunately. And in terms of sort of spending time with friends and stuff, you can join clubs, you can make friends outside of medicine. I know I've been able to make plenty of friends outside medicine, so it's not like you're just stuck with one group of people and you're chained to a study desk. That's not the case at all. So yeah, even though you're in there for a long time, you still get the time to meet people outside your degree, and you get to spend time doing things you love to do. So yeah.
That's really interesting, thank you. So Catherine, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, since medicine is such a long degree, how do you finance it?
So there is loads and loads of options in ways you can finance it. So, and it's also obviously very dependent on your own personal circumstances, things like how much your parents might earn, how much they're willing to give you. That's obviously a contributing factor. But assuming you're not getting anything from outside sources, there's a lot of government loans available. So obviously there's the tuition loan just to pay off your actual fee to learn. So that 9.25 grand, that can like just, you can apply for that and it will just go straight to university. You don't see any of it. But in terms of actually like living, you can get a maintenance loan, which I know is really common. So that's depending on your personal circumstances and things like how much your parents earn. And you can get whatever amount, I think it's per term. So you get like a big bulk sum at the start, and then you can use that to pay for things like bills, food, any other like necessities. Of course, there's other options like bursaries. I think a lot of people forget about that. So different medical schools and universities might offer bursaries for certain things. So that's essentially free money. So if you are eligible for those, I would really encourage you to apply for them because you don't have to pay them back and it will help you out. Of course, there's other options that you can work alongside if you wanted to. So that could be while you're at medical school, like a weekend job, or it could be, a big holiday work when you're back at home for the holidays. I know that's what I did. I love work at like my local cooperative. I did that anyway, so that helped me get a bit more money to like buy nice things and just live as well. So there is a lot of options, but there's a lot of good resources. So like the Student Finance England is a good place to look for general information on how it all works. And also the universities themselves might have some information pages as well. I'm sure Generation Medics has got some information as well. So there's loads of sources out there.
So the next question is from Clinton, who asks, I've heard that Liverpool students take their final exams a year before you graduate. Is that right? And what do you think the benefits are of that?
Okay, yeah. So it's a bit tricky at the moment. So for the year that I've just finished, that is true that we did it. I did mine in fourth year, and then I didn't have my finals in fifth year because I've done them in fourth year. But I believe they are changing that at the moment, so it will move to final year. So if any of you guys apply and get it in, then I assume that will be the case for you. But it's still changing, and I'm the year behind, so I'm not as clued in. In terms of benefits for it, I think it was really helpful to get it done in fourth year. Because when you hit fifth year, I mean, the way Liverpool's tailored at the moment is the fifth year is meant as kind of a learning on the job as to how to be an F1. So you kind of get to grips with what your first job's going to be like, what you need to get involved with. You feel a lot more comfortable with it before you go into that job. But I think there's definite cons as well, because if you have that extra year, you've got much more knowledge, you've got much more confidence. So I suppose the exams will feel easier if you have it in final year. So it's definite pros and cons to both. But yeah, that's how it is with Liverpool at the moment.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, I think it's a common theme with applying to uni that you should check in your year what the courses are like, because it does change quite a lot between different years. So now to some questions from current medical students. So from Alavio, the question is, what was your final year at uni like?
So my final year I really liked it. It was very chill. Well, as chill as medical school can be anyway. But so yeah, as I was kind of touching on, fourth year, getting finals out the way, it was lovely just to be able to just breathe a bit and just kind of live a bit for fifth year, I suppose. COVID, restricting, of course. But yeah, so fifth year was really nice because I got to just kind of get stuck in with, learning how to be an F1, what that would be like, preparing myself for things like what an on-call will be like, and just making sure I've got my exams out of the way for my application. So the SJT exam is something you do in final year. So I didn't have to have the loom of the other like finals and stuff. So I could just kind of focus on those and the prescribing exams. So that's the two exams you definitely get. Yeah. But yeah, I got lots of time to do other stuff. So I got to do a lot of teaching. I had like a little group. It was me and another fifth year. We had a little group of third, fourth years, and they were about to do their upcoming exams. So we had like a whole year with them, and I kind of got to see them on like a 2-weekly basis, got to teach them like different systems. So cardiovascular, respiratory, skin stuff, all that kind of stuff in preparation for their OSCE. So that's the practical exams you get to do. And I really enjoyed that. That was something that I managed to get my teeth stuck into. I got a lot of skills of experience from that, which was really nice. I enjoyed that. So that's something I'm hoping to take forward, and something I got the time to do in 5th year. So yeah, it's been a really good year.
Great. So for anyone who might not be familiar, could you just clarify what an F1 is?
Yes, so an F1 is a foundation year 1 doctor. So it's the very first year you spend as a working doctor in the UK. So once you finish medical school, you go into medicine as a doctor as an FY1. So it's when you've got a provisional license to practice. So you're still really well supported by your seniors, by other doctors, and you just get a chance to just learn on the job. You get to do various different types of jobs. You get to rotate through different specialties. And that's the first year of 2 foundation years where you don't have like a specific training program to be a surgeon or to be a medical doctor or to be a GP, for example. So it's your first 2 years. It's the first of those years we get to just feel it out and learn on the job.
That's really interesting. Thank you. The next question is from Will, who asks, which was your favourite year at medical school and why?
So 5th year has been really good. But I think one of my favourites has to be 3rd year as well. Because at Liverpool we had our first 2 years was your preclinical stuff, so a lot of lectures basically. And then the 3rd year is when you had a big switch from most of the time in the lecture theatre to most of the time in the hospital. And when I got to spend that time on the wards, meeting doctors, patients, nurses, everyone there, I really kind of felt like I was being a doctor a bit. I think for the first 2 years when you're stuck in the lecture, we were like not quite doctoring yet, I suppose is the way to put it. So 3rd year was really nice because it wasn't finals year yet, so I was still a bit more relaxed, and you really kind of got to grips with like some of the core themes, and you kind of felt like you were helping on the wards as well. So 3rd year was probably one of my favorite years.
Great. So some more reflection now. Olivia asks, if you could go back in time to your first year, what tips would you give yourself to make the most of your degree?
I think from what I tell anyone that's like in first year or about to start first year is have fun. First year is such like an intense year in everyone's head because like it's your first year, you're really scared, you're nervous. It's a completely new experience, which I can understand. I was the same. But it's the time where you've like got the least responsibility, I suppose, and at least from the way my medical school works, and maybe still works unless it's changed, the points that you get for your application for first year, you don't get any in the first year. It only starts from 2nd year onwards, so it doesn't matter too much if like you bomb an exam or anything. You can just, it doesn't count and doesn't affect your scores later on, if that makes sense. At least on my medical school, I don't know if that's the same everywhere. So yeah, just having as much fun as possible, so making friends, just getting stuck in with different clubs, trying new things. I think it's a really good year to start that. So for any first year, just chill out, have a good time.
Thank you. So the next question is from Kay, who asks, what were some of the hardest things you did at medical school and why?
So I think one of the hardest things is, I suppose in medical school and medicine in general, you get put in a lot of situations in which it's quite new to you. It's maybe skills you haven't used before. So I suppose, as I was talking a little bit about before, that I'm most worried about starting is, those difficult conversations. And a lot of the times at school, you might be in like a webinar webinar now. When it was in person in little group settings, there's a lot of opportunities for you to speak up, have a go. Like we have practice patient interviews with like actors, and sometimes there's only 2 or 3 people that can have a go. And it's quite easy to sit back because you're so nervous and not having a go, but sort of actually putting yourself forward and having a go really does make you feel a lot better and a lot more confident afterwards. So it's making that first leap is probably like the hardest thing on the whole that I've had to do throughout medical school. And I know whenever I have made that leap, I felt like, oh, I've learned a lot from that. I'm actually a lot better than I previously thought I was. So I suppose it's another learning point as well. Take those leaps, deep breath, take those leaps. But that's the hardest thing I probably had to do throughout school. Yeah.
Thank you. So Danny asks, what advice would you give a medical student who's struggling through exams?
I think the one piece of advice I'd probably give to like any exams, regardless if it's medicine or not, but especially medicine, is there's always that want to like, again, chain yourself to the desk. I've got to revise for 9 to 5. I've got to, get those hours in to get the knowledge up. But something people all like really often miss is those little breaks you need to take. So if you like, let's say you've revised for like 30-40 minutes and you haven't taken a break yet. I think it's really helpful to just get up, stretch your legs, make a cup of tea, maybe read a chapter of a book, go for a walk, whatever you want to do. Just take a break, and then your brain can like reset. And then when you come back again, then you're going to be fresh and you're actually going to remember stuff. The amount of times I've just like sat for a few hours and I feel like afterwards none of that's gone in my head. So the one piece of advice, no matter how hard it feels to do, is just take regular breaks. So you can set an alarm or something, say after so long, right, take a break, like phone a friend, text a friend, whatever. Yeah. And when you are working, have your phone away from you. And you can get a few apps that like locks you out of social media for like so long. Those are really helpful if that's something you want to try. So 2 pieces of advice there.
That's really good advice, thank you. So the question we have here is from James, and that is, what are you most looking forward to as a doctor now you've graduated, in your professional life, that is?
So one thing I'm actually really looking forward to is being able to interact with the medical students on the ward. So, because I know as a student, when I wasn't get to meet the F1s or the F2s that were really keen to like get me involved and get me doing stuff and teaching me things, I know I really flourished. I got a lot of opportunities to learn, and that it meant a lot to me. It felt like felt like I was actually a part of the team, and that sort of kept me engaged as well. So I'm really looking forward to being that doctor that can maybe like grab the nervous medical student side, like, come with me, I'll look after you, and teach them a little bit on the way, hopefully, if I can remember anything. So I'm really, really looking forward to that, sort of, I suppose, being the sisterly figure to look after someone that does come to. So I look forward to that.
Okay, Dr. Catherine, you said that you were interested in maybe becoming a GP in the future. What's the route towards that from a recently graduated medical student to becoming a qualified GP?
Okay, so the most traditional route you'll get is you'll do F1, F2 years, like I mentioned before. Essentially, everybody does those. And then you'll apply for GP specialist training. So straight out of F2, you can go into that, which is at the moment a 3-year training course. Again, it might change because everything changes, but that's what it's like at the minute. So after 2 years of F1 and F2, and then 3 years as a GP ST 1, 2, and 3, that is when you become a fully qualified GP. So it is one of the shortest training pathways at the moment. So I could be a GP in 5 years' time, which is quite wild if I wanted to do that. There is, of course, other options. So I think it's quite common at the minute for people to take other foundation years, so F3s, F4s, F5s, F6s, as many as they like, where you can do loads of stuff like working abroad. You can do just loads of, you can be quite select about the shifts you might want. So depending on if you want some more years before you start, there's absolutely no rush. And also it is entirely possible to go down other training routes, so like surgical training or medical training, and then switching into GP. There might be some specifics about if you've done so many years in whatever, you might be able to skip one of the years of GP specialist training. The best place to look for that is the Royal College of General Practitioners, or Royal College of whichever one you might be looking into, if that's something you want to look at. So yeah, the shortest pathway is that 5-year one, but you can get in other ways.
Okay, that was really interesting. Another question that we have for you is how you examined at medical school.
Okay, I think question. So again, very different for each medical school, but I'll tell you about Liverpool at least. So what's really common is you can get written exams, which is the obvious ones. You might get 1 or 2 hour-and-a-half exams where you're tested on things like the core specialties, so like medicine, surgery, general practice, community stuff. And then you might get more specialist ones like women's health, pediatrics, anesthetic, all those kind of like more niche things, which is important for you to know about. So you can get those every, half the year, like formative ones in like the January, and then the actual ones that count in June, July. And then the other one that's really quite prominent, especially in Liverpool, is the OSCEs, which I mentioned before, is practical exams. So if you've had MMI interviews or anything like that, you'll be quite familiar with like the different stations you go around, so like 5 to 7 stations. But for a practical OSCE, each room will be a different thing. So it might be taking a history from an actor, it might be examining an actor, it might be interpreting some data, so some blood results or something. it might be interpreting a chest x-ray, things like that. So you get tested on your clinical skills, basically. So what you've learned on the wards, speaking to patients, your core knowledge and things like that. So you might get 1 or 2 of those. Other ways they'll examine you is you might do like little essays. So I know I've done one about diversity, done one about I think it was about medical law, medical ethics kind of thing. So you might have a few of those, again, depending on your medical school. I think I maybe did 1 a year, so not many. Think about other ways. The other major part that the uni will assess you is with your portfolio. So that's something that you tick off when you're in clinical practice to show that you're taking histories, examining people, taking bloods, spending time with the nurses, learning how to take observations and things. So that's something that you will need to pass the year and pass your whole degree, to get all those things ticked off and done to show you're engaging when you're there, basically, and not just signing in and then leaving. So that's a really important way to assess people. So just to summarize, that was the written exams, the practical OSCEs, might give you essays and things like that, and then the e-portfolio, so the portfolio, but there might be some other little bits and bobs here and there, but that's the main thing.
Okay, so now a couple of questions specifically about Liverpool. What was the teaching like there?
The teaching, I really liked it as a whole, positive experience. So Liverpool at the minute does case-based learning as one of the core ways it teaches. So little small groups will get together, about 8 of you, and you do it per body system. So cardiovascular, respiratory, gastrointestinal, all that stuff. So you get 1 for each block, and you'll have a few cases. So 1 to 4 cases will be about a certain person, and then they'll sort of carry you through that case. Like, they might ask you about, okay, so what history questions might you want to ask? What's something you'll look for in the bloods? What's important pathophysiology, so why does this disease, how does this disease work, basically. So I'll ask you loads of questions around that case, and it really helps to consolidate your learning about whatever topic it is. And of course, I'll only pick topics that's really important for you to know about. So diabetes, high blood pressure, things like, various cancers and things, you'll get taught about those. So you go in small groups, you just discuss them as students, and then you come back in and you get one with a facilitator, which is normally a doctor or like a clinical fellow, and then they'll go through the answers, and you'll be able to have a chance to ask an actual professional about, why this answer is this and what you need to know. So you really get a good opportunity to really engage with, an actual case, which could be an actual person that you see. So I think it's a nice way to learn, at least for me, suits me. And just, the lectures themselves are always really good standard at Liverpool. We've got the benefit of a lot of specialty hospitals around the area, like Alder Hay Children's Hospital, and Liverpool Heart and Chest for heart cardiology. So there's a lot of very, very well-trained doctors that work in those hospitals that have had a lot of experience. So we get teaching from them as well, which is really, really lovely. So yeah, very positive teaching experiences.
And then in terms of the social side, do you get to meet all the other medics at Liverpool, or are you mainly always in one group?
So it is quite common to have one group that you're quite comfortable with. But I think it's quite common throughout the years to be in one group for the first year, and then they might mix you up again. You might be in a different group for the second year. So there's definitely opportunities to meet other medical students that way. Also, again, things change a lot in terms of curriculum, but when you're in certain hospitals rotating around different specialties, you might be having a different group of students with you each time, possibly, definitely across the years. So you will meet loads of people that way as well. But I don't think you'll ever get through the whole cohort knowing them properly, because there's 300 odd people. I know I've seen a lot of people around in my 4th year, 3rd year lectures. I'm I've never seen this person before. So there's always something new to me, which is quite nice, actually. But you do get a chance to have a little, it's quite easy to make a core group of friends as well, and have lots of other friends on the periphery too. So yeah, you'll never fully meet everyone, but you definitely get to rotate around and meet different people, which is good.
So another question we have is, what is intercalation and what subjects can you study?
That's a really good question. So intercalation is an extra year that you can take to study something else, basically. So some medical schools will have it as an optional year you might want to take. So at Liverpool, we can choose to do it, but you can apply to some medical schools that have it ingrained as part of it. So I think Cambridge and Oxford's are obvious examples where they have 6-year programs, which is because they've got that extra year for intercalation. So it's basically a year when you can go study whatever you want. You can go do a master's, you can go do, I think you can get bachelor's degrees, I think. You can go to other universities for that. You can study anything at all. I think normally they encourage you to do something medicine based. So it might be medical law, medical ethics, tropical medicine. I know some people have done like medical education, they do emergency medicine stuff. So there's absolutely loads of choice. But you can go do like a philosophy or an art, you know, masters, whatever you want to do. So yeah, it's just not an optional year for you to just decide to just do whatever you want, which is quite nice. And it can get you extra points when you're doing your applications, although I think that might be changing because everything's changing. But it can, obviously it does give you a benefit to do that extra year.
That's really interesting, thank you. So another question we have is, which has been your favourite placement so far and why?
My favourite placement, so obviously I've bigged up GP a lot, but one that I have really liked, which I have no idea if I would like, was my acute block, which is basically A&E, all those like acute medical units, surgical units where people get referred to really quick to be seen. So I got to spend 8 weeks on there. This was in my final year. So yeah, I didn't know what to expect because I've never been in an A&E before. So I kind of got to see a lot of people myself. I felt really involved. Like the staff was so lovely. I got to see lots of stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise. So I think one thing that I can think of at the moment is a lady that came in, bless her, she dislocated her shoulder. So I was helping basically the doctor put it back in. So that's a completely wild experience that I wouldn't expect turning up that day. So I got to see a lot of stuff in A&E and I learned a whole lot on the job. And it was very, very helpful. I know it will be for me starting F1, like having some of that experience under my belt. And it was just really good fun. I really, really liked, like, it could be anything that walks in. So that was probably my best, just because I really got to see everything. So that was my favourite.
And so you probably had quite a unique last year or last couple of years because of COVID. What was it like to be a final year medic during COVID?
So one thing, yeah, just for context, when obviously everything kicked off in March, we were completely taken off. So I didn't see any clinical practice from March 2020 until I started 5th year. So if anything, I was just happy to be in clinical practice as a start. It was very weird because obviously there's a lot of change in social norms. So like being around people felt a little bit weird. That I always got to see like all my peers quite frequently on the wards, but it was actually really good. It was really nice that I wasn't just, you know, stuck inside. I felt really awful for the other year groups that were younger, that weren't in clinical practice yet, or other degrees where they're just kind of stuck with a webcam, and I feel like it's quite hard to see people. So I was really, really grateful to be able to regularly see some of my 5th year colleagues on placement and be able to like chat to them and just feel a bit normal. So that was really lovely. And yeah, it was just a bit weird, obviously, on the wards. When you're seeing people, you've got to make sure, you know, you're washing your hands all the time, make sure you got all your PPE on. It did restrict some of my learning opportunities, as is the nature, because, you know, people are understaffed and just they've got less time for you, which was a bit of a shame. But I suppose as a 5th year, it wasn't too much the negative because I'd had most of my uni experience at the time. But I did get to feel very helpful. I had all the skills, being able to take bloods and everything. So I felt like I really got to contribute to the ward, which I really liked. So yeah, definitely a mixed bag, but it was as positive as it could be, I think.
That was really interesting, thank you. So unfortunately time is running out. I'd love to use the last couple of minutes just to get a final piece of advice. First of all, for aspiring doctors applying to medicine, what's something you wish you had known? And I know we've touched on some of these before earlier on, but is there anything else that you think you didn't know when you were first applying?
So yeah, so it kind of related to the other thing I've been talking about, but one thing I wasn't aware of is just the amount of opportunities there are available when you're in medical school. So both related to medicine directly and just something that's completely non-related. So obviously there's various different clubs, societies that you can get involved in, and I don't think I realize how many there are when you get there, but there's a lot to choose from. And I find it really helps to try new things. I know I got into jiu-jitsu because of that. So it's a sport that I've been doing since 1st year and really enjoyed it. Made a lot of good friends from that. And I suppose for medical based things, there's loads of opportunities to do research if you want as a medical student. as I've mentioned before, I've done some teaching, and that's something that I got involved with because of the other student societies, and there was little groups that get set up. And there's almost like, so they get bombarded with information sometimes a bit about how many opportunities there are, but you can literally do whatever you want. You can like set up your own society or something, or there's things like you can get involved with the BMA as a student directly, or with Royal Colleges sometimes. So you can do some stuff directly with those official medical like groups. So there's loads of opportunities to do stuff, and that's not something I think I appreciated before I got in. But yeah, you can do loads of stuff.
And also, can I have one final piece of advice for medical students? What's something medics can do to make the most of their time at med school?
So I think the crux of that is basically just do what you love and find, it's a really good opportunity to get involved with things that you really love to do, because as a student, you've got that protected time. It's like Wednesday afternoons for sports and things. You don't necessarily need to do sports, but you can do things that you love. And when you're working, and if this is something I'm thinking about now, and as I'm about to start, it's a lot more tricky to find that time, and you might be doing overtime things. So it's a really good opportunity to, do the things that make you happy, because it will help you get through, and a whole manner of things, as your well-being and everything, and that will have a domino effect, and you'll do better in medical school as a result. And I suppose the other thing is it's a really good chance to try new things. So whether you're maybe not keen on research teaching, or don't currently have a sport or like a creative outlet you're interested in, it's really helpful to just like tag along to a few like the little fresher events and just see, oh, is this something I'm interested in? Because sometimes it can stick, and it's something that you find that you really love and you carry forward potentially for the rest of your life. So it's a good chance to just try new things. So yeah, do what you love, try new things.
Yeah, that's really good advice, I think, for med school and beyond. Just enjoy yourself, really.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's it from us today. Thank you to the wonderful Catherine and everyone who's tuned in. We really hope you found this helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe, as it helps us out. We'd love to hear from you, so comment below to let us know what you think. Remember, we have lots more support and advice available on our website, generationmedics.org.uk, so do take a look. If you're already a member, jump into conversation on our forum, and if you're not, then why not join? See you again soon. Bye.